Since early 2025, Deep Sleep Stories has been shared freely, and I'm so grateful for your support. To keep the show sustainable, we're making a change. Free episodes will now come out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and they'll include brief ads only at the very beginning. If you'd like the full experience, premium membership on Patreon includes daily episodes, ad-free listening, no extra announcements, the full back catalog ad-free, and a private feed for your favorite podcast app. Spotify listeners should find the experience stays essentially the same after signing up. If you choose to join, you'll be directly helping support the show and keep it going. And whether you listen on the free feed or as a member, thank you for being here.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where the night is unhurried and gentle, and where you can let the world grow quiet around you. Tonight you'll drift into a dreamy seaside evening, settling into a peaceful nap on a balcony warmed by salt air and softened by the hush of rolling waves. You are here now, safe and comfortable, and there is nothing you need to do but rest. Let your shoulders loosen as if a warm scarf has been lifted away. Let your jaw unclench, your forehead smooth, your hands soften in your lap or at your sides. If it feels good, take a slow breath in and through the nose as though you're tasting clean air for the first time. And then let it go. Gently, like a sigh that floats down onto a pillow. Imagine the faintest scent of sea salt, sunlight lingering on wood, and a whisper of blooming night flowers carried on a breeze. The air is cool in a kind way, the kind of cool that makes you want to curl deeper into comfort. With every breath, you can feel a little more space inside you, as if the day is quietly stepping back, making room for rest. As you listen, allow your thoughts to drift like small boats on calm water. They can come and go without needing your attention. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to hold anything up. Just breathe and let the story carry you the way the sea carries a smooth piece of driftwood, rocking it into stillness. And now, as the calm settles in, the view widens beyond you, and the story begins to unfold as though seen through soft, sleepy eyes. The balcony belonged to a small seaside inn perched above a quiet cove. Its railing was painted a pale color that had faded under sun and wind, the way shells lose their bright shine and become silky, pearl soft. The wood beneath bare feet had been warmed all day, and even now, as evening cooled the world, it held a gentle memory of sunlight. Below, the ocean breathed in long, slow rhythms. Waves rolled in with patient hush, spreading themselves into lace along the shore, then gathering back as if the sea were smoothing a blanket again and again. The sound was steady and kind, never sharp, never hurried. It was a lullaby the coast had been humming since before anyone could remember. On the balcony, a cushioned lounge chair waited beneath a light throw. Nearby, a small table held a teacup with a faint curl of steam and a bowl of smooth stones gathered from the beach. Stones that fit neatly in the palm, cool and comforting, like little anchors for wandering thoughts. A wind chime hung from the corner beam, made of sea glass and thin driftwood pieces. It moved with the breeze, and when it spoke, that spoke softly, like someone whispering from another room. Inside the inn, the hallway lights had been dimmed. Doors rested closed with polite silence. Even the old staircase seemed to creak more quietly than usual, as though it knew the evening was meant for resting. A traveler had arrived earlier carrying a small bag and a gentle tiredness that felt familiar, the kind that comes from moving through the world with open senses. The traveler's day had been full of ordinary things, roads and conversations, sun on shoulders, the simple decisions of where to go and when to stop. And now, with the sky turning toward twilight, the traveler had found this balcony, this chair, this view, and had felt something inside loosen like a knot, untying itself. The traveler stepped out and paused, as if listening for permission from the sea. The air touched their face with salt and coolness, and in that touch there was comfort. The ocean didn't ask questions. The ocean didn't expect answers. It simply was. They set their bag down near the door and moved closer to the railing. Farther out, the horizon was a calm line, and above it the sky held a slow gradient of color, pale gold dissolving into soft lavender, lavender deepening into the first hint of indigo. A few clouds floated like brushed cotton, unbothered by direction, content to drift. On the beach below, a few late seabirds glided low and silent, wings cutting through the air with a lazy grace. Their calls, when they came, were distant and rounded, more like echoes than sounds. Somewhere along the curve of the cove, a lantern had been lit at a neighboring house. Its glow was warm and steady, and it reflected faintly in a window like a friendly eye. The traveler drew in a breath, and the breath seemed to widen their chest and soften their shoulders all at once. They exhaled slowly, watching the sea as if it were a thought they could finally let go of. The chair waited. They eased down onto the cushion, feeling it accept their weight with a gentle give. The throw was light, woven in a way that allowed air to move through it, but still offered warmth. They pulled it over their legs and settled back, letting their head rest against a small pillow that smelled faintly of clean linen and sun. For a while, they simply watched. The wind came and went, never gusting, always wandering, brushing past the balcony as if it were passing through on its way to somewhere else. Each time it returned, it brought the faint scent of tide pools, salt, seaweed, and something mineral and old. The traveler's eyelids began to feel heavier, not with exhaustion, but with invitation. The kind of heaviness that says you may rest now. It is safe. On the table, the tea's steam thinned, then returned, rising in a delicate ribbon. The cup was the color of sand, and the rim had a small chip, as if it had lived a long, well-loved life. The traveler lifted it, cradling warmth in their hands. The first sip was mild and soothing, tasting of herbs and honey and something like chamomile, as though the garden itself had learned how to comfort. They set the cup down again carefully and allowed their fingers to rest on the smooth stones in the bowl. The stones were cool, and their surfaces were polished by water's patience. One stone was darker, almost charcoal, Another was pale and speckled, like a star scattered across gray. The traveler turned one over in their palm, feeling its curve, noticing how it fit the hand as though it had been shaped for it. The waves continued their slow work below. Arrive, soften, recede. Each cycle smoothing the shore and smoothing the mind. The traveler's breathing began to match that rhythm, not deliberately, but naturally, the way a sleepy child begins to breathe, in time with a rocking chair. From within the inn came the faintest sound of a page turning. Someone reading, perhaps, or someone merely moving through their own quiet routine. There was no rush anywhere. Even time seemed to take a slower step, as though it had found a quieter path along the edge of the sea. The traveler shifted in the chair and felt the perfect balance of comfort and cool air. They adjusted the throw, then let their arms relax at their sides. Their thoughts drifted toward the day that had passed, but the thoughts did not sharpen into worries. They floated in and out like clouds, images without weight. A road lined with trees, a small shop with jars of sea salt and handmade soaps, a friendly voice offering directions. A warm meal, eaten slowly. Each memory arrived softly and left softly, like waves that did not insist on staying. Above the horizon, the first star appeared, small and steady. It didn't sparkle dramatically. It simply held its place, patient and calm. Soon another star joined it, then another, as if the sky were quietly opening its eyes. The wind chime spoke again. Sea glass clicked gently against driftwood, a sound as tender as a lullaby hummed under breath. The traveler listened, and something in their chest eased further like a door unlatched. At the far edge of the cove stood a lighthouse, old and pale, with a top that caught the last of the fading light. It wasn't tall in a dramatic way. It simply stood where it had always stood, a quiet guardian. Its lamp had not yet begun its slow turning, but it would when the dark grew deeper, and its beam would sweep the water in gentle arcs. The traveler's gaze found the lighthouse and rested there, as if drawn by the idea of guidance that required no effort, a light that simply turns, a light that simply offers, a light that does not demand anything in return. Their eyelids lowered, then lifted again, heavier each time. The ocean's sound grew louder in their attention, or perhaps everything else grew softer around it. The boundary between waking and dreaming began to blur, not abruptly, but like colors blending on wet paper. A small cat appeared at the balcony door, stepping out as though it lived there, as though it belonged to the inn and the evening and the sea. Its fur was the color of toasted bread, with a pale stripe down its nose. It paused, tail lifting like a question mark, and looked at the traveler with calm curiosity. The traveler, half smiling, extended a hand. The cat moved closer and pressed its head into the offered palm, then leapt lightly onto the end of the lounge chair. It curled into a neat loaf shape, paws tucked, eyes half closed, purring like distant thunder softened by fog. The traveler's breath slowed further, matching the cat's steady purr, and the sea's steady hush. A sense of companionship settled over the balcony, a quiet feeling of being watched over by something small and warm and unconcerned. The sky darkened into deeper blues, the clouds thinned, the stars multiplied in the gentle way of the coast, where city lights did not interfere, and the night could reveal itself fully. The moon rose gradually, not yet bright, but present, a pale curve that promised softness. Below, the tide shifted, and the waves changed their pattern slightly, still slow, still patient. The sea's breathing never stopped. It simply found new ways to continue. The traveler drifted into a comfortable drowsiness, then returned briefly to awareness when a soft breeze lifted the edge of the throw and set it down again. The fabric moved like a sigh. The traveler's fingers relaxed, the stone slipping back into the bowl with a quiet click. As sleepiness deepened, the traveler's mind began to wander into gentle imaginings. The lighthouse at the end of the cove seemed to become more than a building. It felt like a story that had been standing there for a very long time. The traveler imagined the lighthouse keeper, perhaps not a person at all, but a presence, a quiet caretaker of the light. In the traveler's softening thoughts, the lighthouse keeper moved through the spiral stairs with slow steps, carrying a lantern that never flickered. The keeper's hands were steady. Their face was kind, though the traveler couldn't quite picture it. The keeper reached the top and tended the great lamp, polishing glass, adjusting gears, whispering to the flame as if it were a living thing. The flame listened. The flame glowed. Out over the water, the first sweep of light began, slow and wide. It traveled across the surface of the sea like a reassuring hand, brushing over waves and dark water without startling it. The beam reached the cove and painted a brief path on the ocean, then moved on, continuing its gentle circle. The traveler watched the beam with half-lidded eyes. Each time it passed, it felt like a slow blink from the horizon, a reminder that the world was awake in quiet ways, and that there was no need to stay awake oneself. The cat purred, its small body rising and falling with steady breath. The traveler's own breath followed suit, smooth and even. In the space between breaths, there was stillness. In the space between thoughts, there was more stillness. The teacup cooled. The steam disappeared. The tea became a calm pool in porcelain, reflecting the faint starlight. The wind chime spoke less often now as the breeze softened. When it did speak, it was gentle, almost shy, as though it didn't want to interrupt the gathering hush. From below came the occasional sound of a wave meeting a cluster of rocks. The sound was deeper there, like a soft drum. Then quickly it returned to the usual hush, the usual smoothing rhythm. The traveler's body grew heavier in the chair, sinking into comfort, supported in all the places that needed support. The throw felt warmer, the pillow felt softer. In the distance, a boat moved across the horizon, its light small and steady. It didn't make noise the traveler could hear. It was simply a moving point, drifting in the dark like a firefly that had learned the language of the sea. The traveler watched it for a moment, then their eyes closed. And when they opened again, the boat had moved farther along, still steady, still calm. A gentle drowsiness took the traveler more fully now, and the world began to feel dreamlike around the edges. The balcony seemed to float above the cove, as if the inn were a quiet ship anchored to the cliff. The traveler, wrapped in the throe, became a passenger on this ship of night, sailing nowhere in particular, simply rocking in place with the ocean's breath. In the traveler's mind, the air grew even softer. The sea became a wide, dark silk scarf, folding and unfolding. The stars became slow-moving lanterns drifting upward. The lighthouse beam became a ribbon of pale light, circling and circling, tying the night together with calm. The traveler's thoughts wandered into an imagined walkway that stretched from the balcony down toward the shore. Not a steep path, but a gentle one lined with low grasses that swayed as though they were underwater. The traveler imagined walking there, barefoot, the earth cool and springy beneath their feet. Each step felt easy. Each step felt supported. Along the path were small lanterns placed at intervals, their flames protected by glass. The lanterns didn't flicker. They glowed steadily, casting soft pools of light on the ground. In each pool of light, the traveler felt more relaxed, as though the lanterns were little islands of comfort. At the end of the path was the beach, pale under moonlight. The sand looked silver gray, and it held the faint patterns of retreating water. Tiny shells lay scattered like quiet confetti. The traveler imagined kneeling to touch the sand, feeling it cool and fine between their fingers. The sea was close, the edge of water whispering in and out, whispering in and out. The traveler imagined stepping closer until the water brushed their toes. It was cool, but not shocking. It felt clean. It felt like a gentle awakening that somehow still led deeper into rest. The water slipped away again, leaving a thin sheen on the sand that reflected the stars. Then it returned, and the cycle continued, endlessly soothing. In the traveler's soft, drifting mind, the sea offered something, an invitation perhaps, or a secret that was not meant to be understood, only felt. The secret was simple. Rest is natural. Rest is allowed. Rest belongs to everyone, the way the ocean belongs to the horizon. The traveler, still on the balcony in reality, shifted slightly, as though aligning more perfectly with the chair. The cat adjusted too, curling tighter. The lighthouse beam continued its slow sweep, patient as breathing. A faint bell sound drifted from the distance, likely from a buoy far out beyond the cove. It wasn't loud. It was a soft, rounded tone that traveled over water and arrived gentle. The sound seemed to settle into the traveler's chest and hum there for a moment, then fade away. The traveler's mind followed that sound outward, imagining the buoy rocking on dark water. The buoy was tethered to the sea floor, secure, even while it moved. It rose and fell with the waves, obedient to the ocean's rhythm, never fighting it. The bell rang only when the sea nudged it in just the right way. The bell did not ring often. It did not need to. That image of being tethered, safe, allowed to rise and fall, felt comforting. The traveler's breath deepened, and their exhale grew longer, smoother, as though the body were practicing the language of sleep. The inn behind the balcony seemed to settle too. The building creaked once, a soft, settling sound like an old friend, shifting in bed. Somewhere a door clicked shut gently, then silence returned, thick and warm. The traveler's eyelids stayed closed longer now between brief, drowsy openings. Each time they opened, the world looked softer, edges blurred by relaxation. Each time they closed, the darkness behind the lids felt welcoming, like a quiet room prepared just for rest. In that welcoming darkness, the traveler's imagination returned to the lighthouse keeper, the quiet caretaker of the turning beam. The keeper moved with calm purpose, making sure the light remained clear. In the traveler's mind, the keeper paused by a window at the top of the tower and looked out across the ocean. Their gaze was not searching anxiously. It was simply witnessing, watching, the way the moon watches. And then, in the traveler's dreamy thoughts, the keeper turned their attention toward the cove and the inn and the small balcony, not with intrusion, but with a kind, distant noticing. The keeper seemed to nod as if to say, "Yes, rest there. That is a good place to rest." The traveler felt that imagined nod like a soft blanket tucked around the shoulders. The wind returned for a moment, brushing the traveler's hair, carrying the scent of night flowers from somewhere along the cliff. Perhaps jasmine, perhaps something else. The scent was delicate and it faded quickly, but it left behind the feeling of sweetness, the feeling of being cared for by the world in small ways. The cat's purr deepened, becoming slower, like the engine of a ship far away. The traveler's chest rose and fell, slow and steady. Their hands were open and relaxed, their face softened into the quiet neutrality of sleepiness. Out on the ocean, the small boat's light had moved farther away, blending into the stars near the horizon. The buoy bell rang again, faintly, as though the sea were gently reminding itself that it was there. The lighthouse beam swept across the cove and painted the balcony in pale light for a moment. For that brief moment, the traveler's relaxed face and the cat's curled body were illuminated like a peaceful painting. Then the beam moved on and the balcony returned to shadow and starlight. The traveler no longer followed the beam with their eyes. Their attention was inward now, drifting deeper. Their mind began to let go of images, letting go of even the imagined path to the shore, letting go of the keeper and the buoy and the boat. Those things could continue without being watched. The sea could breathe without being listened to closely. The stars could shine without being counted. The night could be night without being described. All that was needed was rest. The traveler's body sank further into the chair. Muscles released in small, subtle waves. First the shoulders, then the arms, then the legs, then the belly. The jaw loosened. The tongue rested gently in the mouth. The space behind the eyes softened, as if the mind itself were reclining. The ocean continued, in, out, a steady rhythm, carrying the traveler down and down, not into anything frightening, but into something familiar and safe, like returning to a home that has always been there, even if it hasn't been visited in a while. The wind chime made one last quiet sound, a tender clink that seemed to hang for a moment in the air, then dissolve. After that, the balcony became almost perfectly still, the kind of stillness that feels alive, filled with gentle sounds so soft they barely register. The traveler's breath grew even slower, and their thoughts grew fewer, and between those few thoughts was a spacious calm. The lighthouse beam continued its steady circle, but now it felt farther away, less important, like a detail in a dream that doesn't need attention. The buoy bell was a memory, the boat light was gone. Only the hush remained. The traveler slept, or nearly slept, drifting along the edge where waking and dreaming meet. In that place, everything is soft. Everything is possible. Nothing is demanded. The night deepened, and with it, the quiet. The balcony held the traveler in gentle stillness. The chair supported every curve. The throw stayed warm. The air stayed kind. The sea continued its slow breathing below, steady as a heartbeat. The traveler's face was peaceful now, untroubled. The cat remained curled at the end of the chair, purring less, breathing more, its small body relaxed in complete trust. The lighthouse beam swept and swept again, but it felt like a distant comfort, like a soft night light in another room. It did not interrupt. It only reassured. The traveler drifted deeper, breath in and out. The sound of the waves became a soft blur, like a lullaby heard through a doorway. The sky above remained wide and calm, stars holding their places with quiet patience. The world seemed to whisper, "Sleep is welcome here." And so the traveler slept, carried by sea breeze, held by the balcony, soothed by the ocean's endless rhythm. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.